Big thanks to Napoleon Grills for sponsoring this episode.
I found another steak that is so cheap and so amazing. Ta-da! That's what I'm talking about. And if you know, then you know. But if you don't know, then I'm going to tell you right now. This is the flat iron steak. And normally it comes in two of these steaks connected together, sitting on top of each other. So it's one big giant piece. But now this one has the silver skin removed in between and cut in half. And then it looks like this. And it reminds me of a Wagyu steak. And why is that? It's because of the intramuscular fat that sits in that steak. Look at that beautiful marbling. Look at the red color. That is what makes me smile. And therefore I need you to know about this steak. This steak could be that steak that you're gonna buy when you're in a pinch and you don't have money to buy ribeye every weekend anymore. This is the one to get. And the first thing that I'm gonna do is create a herb butter. Something that I can let melt on this steak. Starting with some parsley, some chives chopped fine. That goes into a bowl. I'm going to add 125 grams of butter, 125 grams of cream cheese, 2 garlic cloves pressed fine, followed up with a good grind on the old salt mill, and that ends up to be about a teaspoon of ground salt, and I'm going to follow that up with half a teaspoon of ground pepper. I'm going to mix that all together, and once I have a delicious herb butter, I'm going to set it aside. I think that looks good. The proof is in eating the pudding. Of course, I'm not going to stop there adding more flavor to it. I'm also going to use these beautiful mushrooms. They're already cut up. Normally I would slice them myself, but I had a good deal on these and they look absolutely amazing. So we're going to use that. And I want to add flavor to it. So I'm going to chop fine some more parsley. Chop fine 4 garlic cloves. I'm going to put all the ingredients in a bowl. Add 50 milliliters of a good quality olive oil to it. Season it with some salt and pepper. Mix it all up and then it's ready to go. And that just goes to show how easy it is to prep everything up front. Got your mise en place in order. That's a fancy chef word of saying be prepared. And then once you start cooking, it's going to be so much easier. You can just focus on the task at hand. You got everything ready to go and don't have to worry about cutting anything or preparing everything. Which reminds me, we got one more thing to slice up. I'm talking about bell peppers. Big, beautiful red bell peppers that I'm going to slice up into nice little strips. And where there are bell peppers, there are onions. I'm going to cut this up into rings. And now I've got my bell peppers, my onions, my garlic mushrooms, my herb butter, and a plank. Yeah, a plank, yes. Let's set this on fire. I'm going to take it, stick it in my fireplace, and that's how I'm going to burn it. This is a cedar plank and is used for cooking. This in combination with food is going to give it a really nice and, well, almost like a fruity experience to the meat. Of course, I want to keep my eye on it, make sure that it doesn't burn too much, but as you can see, it takes a while for it to start. And that's what I need it to look like. Completely charred on the outside. Now that plank is going to go on my Napoleon grill. But first I'm going to turn on the outside burners. That way I'm going to create indirect heat in the center of the barbecue. I'm going to put out the fire on the plank with whiskey. You can see these little bezels are perfect and made for this type of work. It captures the whiskey, it holds it in place while the plank soaks up the whiskey, which it will release later on while we're cooking the rest of the dish. Now you can see the alcohol is burning off, so you don't have to worry about that while you're cooking. And while all that is going on, I'm going to fire up my side burner and stir fry the onions and bell peppers. Once the bell peppers and onions turn nice and soft, I'm going to put them on the board and spread them out. Then it's time to fry the garlic mushrooms. Oh, I could just wish you guys were here to smell this. Garlic mushrooms is one of my absolute favorite things to add to a recipe like this. Now, of course, if you're not a mushroom guy, just leave it out. Don't worry too much about all of the things you don't want to add. Focus on the things you do want to add from the recipe. Make it your own, play around with it, and who knows, you're going to make the recipe even better. Once they're done, I'm going to load them up onto the plank. I'm just going to spread them out because we're going to need a lot of surface for that steak. And of course, I couldn't help myself. This time not with Dutch Gouda cheese, but with a French melting cheese. So I'm just going to take my knife. This is at room temperature. And look, This thing is already melting, so I'm gonna let this fall onto the plank. And another one. There we go. And we're just gonna let this melt. Look at it. That's gonna be so good. Whoa. For now, I'm gonna close the lid because you and me, we're gonna grill a steak. My sizzle zone is still hot. I'm just gonna hit it with a little bit of olive oil to make sure that the grill grates are non-stick. Time for the star of our show. Of course, I'm not just gonna put the steak on the plank and become, well, inspire us. We need a fresh crust, something that's gonna give us a good steak mouthfeel. I want to move this around as much as possible. This is not a cast iron plate where you can just let it sit and be lazy. This is a sizzle zone that goes up to 900 degrees Celsius. So you gotta keep working it, building up that beautiful crust, moving it around, play with the fire, and basically do what we men love doing best. And you can see that I'm not focusing on getting sear marks. I'm looking for an all-out fantastic crust. You see the fat rendering down out of that steak coming up to bubble on the outside, basically frying the whole steak. Now that I got a beautiful crust, it's time to take the steak off the sizzle zone, and I'm gonna place the steak onto the cheese and all of that goodness that's sitting on the plank. Time to turn on all 4 burners. That heat is going to help steam up the flavor of the vegetable, the cheese, and all of the goodness, mushrooms, garlic, everything, and go up into that steak and make our steak taste even better than it already does. As well as a little bit of that char that we put on that plank, that's going to make the whole thing freaking amazing. One last thing, a little bit of butter on top of this steak. Then I'm going to take out my thermometer and stick it into the steak so that I know I'm cooking it to perfection. And once I get the notification, look at this beauty. Whoa, you know your masterpiece is done. This is such a beautiful thing. And if you were here, you could also experience the magic of a plank steak. Now, if you never tried this before, remember, the first time is going to be true magic. You need a cedar plank, that's important. I'm looking for something light that will burn easily, but also gives off a lot of flavor. Let's play it up. Wow, that is one good looking steak. That is so juicy, so tender, looks so good. I'm going to take that beautiful stuff and put it on this plate.
I was thinking the same.
Magic. It's the finishing touch. You can't just you gotta do that thing where it looks good. That's the money shot right there. Why is this onion in front of the beautiful view? Way better. Oh. Oh. Steak is tender. Steak is juicy. Steak has a crust. Steak tastes good. Awesome topping. Awesome bottoming. Awesome planking. Awesome everything.
Awesome.
Awesome. Awesome.